Welcome back to Brain Chatter. I'm your host, Derek Brown. This episode topic is, do company wellness programs work and do we need one? As usual, our podcast episodes are about topics that are at the intersection of leadership, company culture, profit, and sustainability. So let's get started. Today's guest is Mim Gaines, a wonderful friend who is like family to me. She has a tremendous amount of expertise in this arena, and I'll do a full introduction of her in a moment. But for now, welcome, Mim.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. A quick basic level starter question. Why would an organization, including a for-profit company, get involved in an effort involving its company's nutrition, their education about nutrition, or their wellness in general?
Derek, typically it's for the bottom line. I mean, if you think about it, employees are a large cost to the company. And if that employee is not healthy, that company is going to pay more in their insurance. So if you have a worksite wellness program and it promotes nutrition and physical activity and healthy lifestyles, you're going to create a healthier workforce, and that can lower your healthcare cost.
What has elevated this focus on wellness to a higher level priority with many more organizations in recent years? Does it solely have to do with the rising healthcare costs only, or is it the number of sick days taken? Or is it how both of these things hit the bottom line for companies during the tight labor market we've been experiencing? Or is it something else entirely?
Well, it's not just the healthcare cost. So think about the fact that absenteeism and presentism are really issues that a company faces. And what I mean by presentism is how well the company employees actually work when they are at work. It's known that unhealthy employees don't function as well. So in other words, a wellness program can increase productivity and reduce absenteeism. What was really interesting is in a recent article entitled "The Business Benefits of a Healthy Workforce," that article pointed out that companies with a strong health and wellness program actually outperform others on the stock market. So bottom line was, business with employee wellness led to better business outcomes.
Very interesting. If a company or an organization is populated by people who are not cautious at all about their own nutrition and wellness, what are some known short and long-term costs to that organization as a whole?
Well, Derek, if you think about it, 6 in 10 Americans, that's over 50% of our adults, live with at least one chronic disease. Now, chronic disease is like cancer or diabetes, and that's diabetes type 2 as well. Heart conditions, and that could be hypertension, also known as high blood pressure. It can include chronic lung diseases such as asthma. It can include arthritis and even obesity. Anyway, 6 in 10 Americans have one of these chronic diseases, and 4 in 10 U.S. adults have 2 or more chronic diseases. Now, if you look at our older population, 65 and older, 3 or more chronic conditions is very common. Now, the problem there is the chronic diseases will lead to hospitalization, long-term disability, reduced quality of life, or even death. So if you're looking at a business's work pool, that means we're starting off with an unhealthy workforce pool. Our younger adults are in those numbers for chronic diseases. So if you're thinking that the business is not part of the solution, then their short-term cost will be that they are hiring less than healthy employees. In fact, chronic diseases are the leading driver of healthcare cost. And it's estimated that 86% of the nation's healthcare cost expenditures goes towards the treatment and management of a chronic disease. Wow. In other words, if the company offers insurance, it's going to cost them a lot more. Now, the other way to look at it is that chronic diseases are the leading causes of death and disability. So you asked me about long-term. The long-term cost is going to be those employees who are leaving the workplace because they have a disability. and that costs money. Are those retirement age persons who have illnesses, and that will be concerning for companies because that retirement package that has some insurance coverage will cost money. Now, that sounds kind of gloomy, but the good news is that good nutrition is essential in keeping current and future generations of Americans healthy. And this is across the lifespan. So even if you have a chronic disease, it can be managed and complications can be prevented by healthy lifestyle, which is healthy eating and physically active. So many studies are showing that participating in employee wellness have good health behavior outcomes.
That is a fascinating set of information. Thank you for sharing that. So could you say more about what better health behaviors are that lead to better outcomes?
Because people in wellness programs do have healthier health habits, that just means that they have a tendency to eat healthier foods. They may be eating smaller portions. They exercise more often. You're going to see less smoking. If they drink, they don't drink in excess. They even wear their seatbelts more often. And it's interesting that they're pretty good at controlling stress too. So wellness programs can really help alleviate depression and improve life satisfaction. What's interesting is the American Heart Association has completed a review of the availability of wellness programs to improve health and reduce cardiovascular risk. So they are looking at the fact that wellness programs are really important.
Many organizations have started wellness departments and have hired wellness directors that focus on helping internally educate their workforce about wellness, including nutrition. Many also create incentives for employees to adopt the wellness initiatives or strategies and then track those activities toward success. Sometimes there's a direct financial employee benefit if success is registered. So, why are they doing this, and is it having an impact in your observation?
Well, wellness programs are popular because they can work. But let me say they're only going to work if the employee participates. So wellness programs that were started in large businesses actually started for the boss a long time ago. And through the studies, it's shown that it's important for all the employees. And if you look at wellness programs that had a lot of manual labor, they started wellness programs because its safety was such a large in part. Today, if you're looking at wellness programs, they're pretty common in all size businesses, and they can actually be a part of the company benefit package. For example, I was a state employee, and just by getting my annual wellness check, my insurance cost was lower to me. There are a lot of different ways companies use incentives. Some companies want to use a point system, so you earn up to X number of points and you get a gift or a gift card. Some companies will use very simple approaches, like they'll give you a coupon for a casual day or some flex scheduling. But the incentive is the way to get the employee to participate. So it's really important to use an incentive that the employee will feel like is important. What research is showing is that employees are more likely to participate when that wellness program is the healthy total package. And that's more than just eating and exercise. So that integrated approach, that total package, means tying together a number of factors that will affect the employee. This can be physical, like physical activity, but it's mental, it's emotional, it's social, it's financial, and it's even intellectual health. So if you're looking at that integrated approach, they may have built-in options that are seen as incentives that might be a class or a session on financial savings, how to save for the future. They may be offering smoking cessation classes or assistance programs online. They could have all sorts of continuing education topics. Some companies have used social gatherings, such as family events, that seem to be very important to their employees. And that's a type of wellness. Expanding the nutrition sessions to include more health coaching sessions is another frequent solution. But one that I really like is that the employees are getting to see healthier food in the cafeteria and in the vending machines. So that's showing that wellness is important in all aspects. Now, you see some companies giving digital apps, even creating maybe their own app for their company, or giving them a Fitbit or a fancy watch. A very typical one would be flu shots during flu season. But one that's not seen as much that is growing is one that provides breastfeeding support for new moms. Another one that is seeming to be growing is providing resources for dealing with aging parents. But incentives can go on and on. It's just up to the company to figure out what's really important to their employees.
Well, that's really interesting on a lot of different levels, including like with aging parents and the new mothers, just how tight the labor market is and how eagerly hiring managers are looking for ways to keep the best people there. What do you think that it takes for a wellness priority, like you've outlined, to become embedded in the organization's workplace culture?
Well, a culture is from top down and bottom up. So top down means management has to be committed, and that management commitment has to be visible to the employee. What I mean is that wellness is going to be built into the core of what that business does, as opposed to being a program of the month. You know, at first, some companies just said, oh, we're going to have a class on Wednesday. And that was it, just a class with no follow-up. But to be a true wellness, it needs to be aligned with that company's culture and their business goals. So it could be that management is going to create a healthier work environment. One example of that is that one company actually decided to make a walking path around their building. It was very simple. They just got somebody with a tractor and they came in and they plowed out some area and they made a walking path, and employees started using that on break time. Others offered a gym membership because obviously a walking path isn't available for every business. So offering a gym membership. I've already mentioned the healthier eating options in the cafeteria and the vending machines, but that's just showing that management appreciates you. What's also important is that those business policies are going to have to support the wellness program. And what I mean by that is if you say you have a business program where an employee can go talk to an RD or go talk to the health coach, that needs to be on business time. That employee does not need to take time to make an appointment on their off time. That's the way the business embraces the culture. But now the bottom up, that's the employees. And the employees have to have a bottom up approach so that they have what they want to learn. A company with 10,000 workers will have a totally different strategy than a small mom-pop business with less than 100 workers.
How do you recommend that a company understand what they need in a wellness program?
I would say start with your assessment. That employee assessment is where you will get the information. The assessment is going to include the sick data, such as your insurance costs by disease state. So you'll figure out what chronic diseases most of your employees are dealing with. But it's also going to include that input from the workers. So another example. One time we were working with a company who had a lot of women employees. We had done their health data assessment, and their two main health problems were obesity and high blood pressure. But when we did the assessment of what the employee wanted to hear, they wanted to learn about fast, easy supper meals and how to have healthy snacks for their children. So as a dietitian, we said, okay, we're going to address their obesity and high blood pressure, but we did it not through lectures or classes on chronic disease, but we taught the importance of eating fruits and vegetables and less processed foods. And we made up menus and we shared recipes. So it was a way of getting to that chronic disease, but through a mean of what the employee wanted to hear. Another example, when I was in Montgomery, the state employees always complained about not having enough time for exercise. So I went to the state health officer, who was Don Williamson at the time, and he let us stay an hour after work for a yoga class. The employees pitched in and paid for the instructor, but the instructor came to our office area. It was great. We just moved some tables around and we had yoga after work. It did not cost the health department anything because the building was still open. And it was great. The employees were really excited to participate. And when the total package approach comes together, the employee sees that their health and their well-being is important to the company.
Great illustrations. And certainly, as you and I and anybody else listening knows, asking, in this case, employees what they want from a program is so key to the success and adoption. And it makes so much sense, but it's often an overlooked piece of the puzzle. Let me take a moment to do a proper introduction of Mim and her background. Mim has degrees from Jacksonville State University and Auburn University. During her career, she has been the WIC Nutrition Director for the Alabama Department of Health, the statewide Nutrition and Physical Activity Director, and eventually retired from the State Department of Health as a director. Now in her second career, she is both an adjunct faculty member at the Samford University School of Public Health, and she is a consultant with the Association of State Health Nutritionists. In these roles, Mim is also regularly asked to be a speaker at events around the U.S. She gives back to her community in many ways, one of which is by serving on the board of directors of the Food Bank of Central Alabama, a new role to which she was recently recruited. The food bank coordinates the distribution of food to numerous charities that fight hunger and access to food in low-income families and individuals. She and her husband, Judson, have 2 grown children. Their daughter works at Cornell University in New York, and their son works at the U.S. Department of Commerce operations in Argentina. Let me ask you another basic question. You are a registered dietitian nutritionist and a university instructor. Can you tell me what dietitians do and what roles nutritionists play in different settings, including in a company wellness program?
A registered dietitian, and we're often called RDs, will have a 4-year college degree in nutrition, and then we do an internship. So we have 5 years, and that internship is where we learn a lot of the clinical and actual job skills. So after you finish your internship, there's a national test, and when you pass the test, then you can be called a registered dietitian. What's interesting in our profession is that in the next 2 years, all of the new RDs will actually have a master's degree in nutrition or similar field. To get to your question, though, an RD can work in a lot of different places. Probably one of the best well-known places are in hospitals. But we work in public health programs. We can be public health dietitians. School settings hire RDs, and private consultants. Some of our newer, younger RDs are really enjoying sports nutrition because your major college conferences, your professional sports teams, your Olympic athletes, and even the U.S. military require an RD. So the RD can be over the health/diet aspects of life, or they can be over the food service aspect. So I say wherever food is involved, you could probably have an RD. Now, an RD can be called a nutritionist, but the tricky thing is a nutritionist cannot be called an RD. That's because a nutritionist is somebody who took nutrition in college, but didn't do the clinical part. So there's no internship. The nutritionist is going to be a more of a generalist. And you see a lot of nutritionists in nursing homes or schools. Some of the wellness programs hire nutritionists, but just remember, a nutritionist cannot recommend a special diet. So that nutritionist won't have a diet for diabetes or cancer or hypertension, but the nutritionist will be able to help you eat healthier. Does that make sense?
Yes. I did not know any of this until you told me. In your past life with the state health department in Alabama, you worked with the state school board on policies about nutrition in public schools. How much do you think that kids' exposure to nutritional food at school has an impact on their learning and performance, and then on their lifelong nutrition habits?
Oh, I think anytime you have food settings around and young children, they will be learning. So the impact a school can have is great. The food served, the foods in the vending machines, whatever. But now let me make it clear. Alabama has a school cafeteria where RDs are often hired. RDs are at the state level of the school education, and then often in the district or on the county level, you'll have RDs there. So my role was not in the cafeteria about the food served, but it was talking about wellness policies. And looking back on that whole experience, I'm going to give credit to Ron Sparks, who at the time was Commissioner of Department of Agriculture. So long story, but Ron and I had been working together because they have the farmers growing the produce, and we were promoting eating fruits and vegetables. So the more Ron and or Mr. Sparks and I were working together, the more he started to embrace good nutrition. And Commissioner Sparks embraced the importance of good nutrition starting at an early age, so much that he actually went to the superintendent of education. Now, that was Dr. Morton at the time. So Dr. Morton and Commissioner Sparks worked together and created a statewide committee to create wellness guidelines. And Commissioner Sparks and I were on that committee that we tried to have healthier environments by asking each school to have a committee to look at the food vending machines and how else they were using food, like fundraisers. Another committee was looking at the physical activity side of the school and what they could do to beef up the PE and other aspects. Now, on our committee, all we were trying to do was to make sure that the habits that we were teaching actually were good habits, because we know that habits form at an early age, and changing a bad habit is much harder than supporting a good habit. Our habit was about creating healthy choices during the school day.
And don't I remember that you created quite a stir across the state when you led an initiative to have Coke machines, or I should say for their non-Southerners, soda machines, eliminated from public school campuses all across Alabama. Did I describe that right? And can you talk about why you made that a state priority and sort of the impact that resulted?
Well, when I think back to that, I still get that feeling of, oh, wow, that was a hard road. And thank goodness for Commissioner Sparks right there along with me. So, okay, I'd never worked with a policy that brought such a flurry of discussion. Colas or sodas, as you say, have over 16 teaspoons of sugar in a 20-ounce bottle. That's a lot of sugar. And the vending machines at that time in the schools didn't offer diet drinks, and they didn't offer water in most places. So it was mainly they were just offering sugar beverages. So what you would see would be kids were getting, I started to say Cokes, colas to start the day in the morning, and then they would go by and get them at break time. The vending machine would be turned off during the lunch hour, but then they were turned right back on right after lunch. Now, remember, this is about 18 years ago, so it was 2004. And that was the time that there was so much focus on childhood obesity and the negative effects. So if you think back 18 years ago, that's when people were saying, oh no, obese children are going to grow up as slender adults. Don't worry about it. But it really doesn't work that way for the majority of children. And a lot of studies, including NIH studies, show that the risk of an adult having obesity is twice as high for those obese children as for non-obese children.
Wow.
So in other words, obese children don't grow out of obesity. They carry it forward into adult years. And what we were also seeing is all those chronic diseases like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. We were seeing those in children. I remember standing there and watching a child not be able to get off the bus and walk to the top of the stairs of the schools without being out of breath. So we were really concerned about the health of the children. So when we were looking at all those empty calories in the cola, which, by the way, colas were called liquid candy, our goal was to make a healthy environment. Now, we know that schools are just one piece of the solution, but we felt like that children were at school for so long during the day that these changes would really be important. I will tell you that the first attempt to change those machines was not successful because we do have very strong beverage lobbyists here in Alabama. However, the Board of Education finally agreed to the changes in the machines, and I can say now that our vending machines in schools offer a lot more water and diet colas proportionally than they do the sugar beverages. So that was a very hard, long experience for me that I went through. But I'll tell you, one of the best outcomes, you can always say something good that came out of it, was then the health department started looking at the vending machines and said, hey, we're going to create a good choice vending program. And what that good choice vending program, which was started back in 2009, is that it's a voluntary program where the health department has a lot of nutrition information so that someone or buying products for machines can pick healthier snacks and pick the healthier beverages for their vending machine. It's a program that has grown to include health departments, hospitals, university campuses, private businesses have embraced it, but it's voluntary. And the overall goal of the Good Choice program is to offer healthy choices, but you're still allowing for free choice. So a company can easily go to the health department ADPH website and get that information.
I can only imagine how fascinating that whole learning spectrum was.
So it was a good learning experience for me, but I don't want to go back to it.
I understand. Moving back toward talking about more adults in the workplace, we know that every leader, it doesn't matter what type of supervisor or team lead or executive or department manager or whatever they may be, we know that everybody who is a leader in an organization has to wade every day through a large number of issues and projects and determine what's most important. A lot of that sort of brain chatter kind of thing. So they've got to figure out what are their top priorities, what are they going to spend time on. So tell me, where should wellness of the leader, him or herself, and wellness of the people that the leader leads fall within the priority list of that person?
I don't think it should fall in the list. I think it should be the list. I think everything on your list should be measured by those health priorities. But now keep in mind, a leader has to be committed to wellness and not just give it lip service, because employees will know the difference.
Absolutely. What is one of the most telling stories about wellness and the performance of a workplace team or an organization that you've encountered somewhere along your career path?
Oh, my favorite story is Scaleback, Alabama. So Scaleback, Alabama started in 2007. And it started because the Alabama Hospital Association wanted help in creating outreach program to promote health in the community. So the hospitals were working together to present a healthier approach. And at the time, Rosemary Blackman of the Hospital Association came to me because I was over the obesity task force. And she came to me for help and just said, what can we do that will be fun? Well, we started working. Actually, Derek, we were sitting in a closet-sized office and we were planning a program. And I remember telling her that I would help her as long as the health department could play with her, that we would be partners. We didn't know it, but at that moment, we were starting that first public-private health partnership in Alabama. So that's kind of fun to go back and look at that. But what is also interesting is to look at Scale Back Alabama. It is still going on today. It is a free statewide wellness program for adults. So you have to be 18 years or older. You have to live in Alabama or work for an Alabama-based organization. And the whole idea is behind Scale Back is to encourage Alabamians to get healthy by losing weight, but we want you to have fun while you're doing it. Now, back in 2007, it started as a face-to-face program, but over the 16 years, things change, of course, and now it's virtual. So, but it's still that Scale Back lasts for 10 weeks. At the beginning of the 10 weeks, a person weighs in, and then at the end of 10 weeks, they weigh out. And that data is kept. So if you have lost at least 10 pounds in that 10 week, you're eligible to go in for a monetary prize. Now, that 10 pounds is important because that's just 1 pound per week. So we're not asking for a huge weight loss. It's just 10 pounds in 10 weeks. And the monetary prizes came because sponsors like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama saw that we were having some health life changes, and they gave us some money. So we have prizes for our participants. Scale Back Alabama right now is still the state's largest wellness program. They maintain a web page with health tips and program information, and you can go there all year long, whether it is during that 10-week period or not. So I think that's one of my fondest wellness memories.
That's great information. I'll include the links to the websites that you're mentioning in the show notes, by the way. What would be your advice to anyone, whether they hold a formal managerial position at work or not, about how they can advocate for their team's wellness?
To start small. When we started a wellness program for the state health department, I was not in HR, but I worked closely with HR. So to do that, we did an assessment of the organization's health needs, and we asked for a lot of help. So that nutrition section that we had starting a wellness program may not be typical. It's more typical to see HR start the wellness program. And what I'll say is, no matter where you are, there are a lot of online resources and organizations that are helped to create these programs. Personally, I used Wellcola a lot, and I depended on CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They have some great tools for worksite wellness that are free, and they even have a model of how to do worksite wellness. So I would say start small and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Related to nutrition or wellness in general, what do you find to be the one most common piece of advice that you end up offering over and over?
Usually when an individual comes to me, they're coming to me to ask for a change. They're coming to me for a reason. It's not just a simple of, hey, I want to sit down and talk to you, but I want to learn to eat healthy. And I say, why? So I ask the person, why do they want to make the change? Now, you may have a person say they want to get healthy because they want to play with the kids outside. A lot of times I would hear, I want to get healthier because I want to fit into my clothes and I want to feel better about them. Sometimes I remember a man in particular telling me he wanted to be able to walk up the stairs and breathe at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. Several people have come in and said, well, I want to take less medicine. And I always say, yay, that's a great goal, but we're going to work closely with your doctor. It really doesn't matter what the why is, but you need to really make sure that why is important and be ready to put reminders around you about the importance. And some people think that's kind of sticky. Why would I put a reminder to to do something. Why don't I just do it? Those reminders are just visual cues that are really important to our brain. And so if that reason is not that important to you, but it would just simply be nice, the change factor you need is not going to be there. So maybe you want to fit into your clothes, but you've got plenty of other clothes that fit just as well. Well, maybe that's not the why. So you need to figure out what the why. Why do you want to do it? Then when you figure out why you want to do it, I always say pick one lifestyle habit to change. Don't go pick 4 or 5 different things because you're going to get frustrated and you'll quit them all. And that one lifestyle habit, maybe you're going to eat smaller servings. Maybe you're going to drink water. Maybe you're going to walk X number of minutes every day and work up to more time. It doesn't matter. There's so many you can pick. You just need to pick one. And again, you have to be very deliberate about putting reminders. And it may be your calendar will ding at you when it's time to get up and move. Or maybe you have a paper calendar and you want to put an X on the calendar when you do your goal. So at the end of the month, you have all these X's on your calendar and you feel really great about it. Some people will put pictures on the refrigerator to show them why they're doing it and what goal they're working on. The third one, so the first one is the why. The second one is pick one habit. And the third one is to stick with that one habit, change until you're really comfortable with it or that you would miss it if you don't do it. So let's go back to the water. So if your goal is you're going to drink 8 glasses of water a day, well, you know you're comfortable with it or you would miss it when you actually start getting dry mouth when you don't do it. Your body would miss it. Or maybe you get comfortable with it because you notice how much better your skin is beginning to look. So you want to focus on those benefits. So stick with whatever that change is until you feel really comfortable. And then you can add another change. Now that sounds easy, but I'm going to tell you, a realistic thing to remember is a healthy choice may not be the easy choice. What I mean is it's a lot easier to sit in front of the TV than it is to put your tennis shoes on and go for a walk. It's a lot easier to go through a fast food drive-through than to cook vegetables at home. That's why the why is so important, because it may not be the easiest solution, but it's the important solution.
That's an excellent piece of advice. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So a question outside of the wellness arena, but from your years of working in leadership roles, what are some of the best lessons you've learned over the years about effective leadership and how to build a strong workplace culture?
There are a lot of different types of leadership. And whichever type of leadership style you embrace is going to affect the tone of the office staff. It's going to affect your whole culture. I think back to an example of leadership that my stepdad gave me when I was getting my first job as a manager, as a leader. And it's food related, so it's perfect for me. But the advice was to treat my employees like I would a dinner party guest, right? Now you think about a dinner party. I'm going to be preparing for the guest. You would meet the guest at the front door and invite them in. You're going to invite that guest who has just come in to meet other guests that you have at the party. You may leave that guest to go greet another second or a third guest, but you'll kind of circle back in and check on them. When it's finally time to sit down to the dinner meal, you're going to guide your guest into the table. And that table is set. It's going to have your plate, your flatware, your napkins, and of course the food and the beverages will be available. During the meal, that dinner party hostess will be checking on the guests to make sure who needs a beverage refill, who needs a second serving of food, whatever, making sure the conversation is going well. After the dinner is over, after the evening is over, and it's time for everybody to go home, you escort your guests out to the door and you wish them well, and you're often giving them an invitation to come back. Does that kind of describe a dinner party that you would think about?
Yes, it does. It sounds like one of your dinner parties.
Okay, so let's think about the leadership, what I have just said. In that role, I have a clear expectation prepared for that employee. So I'm not cooking food, but I'm making sure a job description is ready. I'm making sure that orientation will flow smoothly. I'm greeting and welcoming that employee to the position, and I'm making sure that they meet coworkers so that they have a good networking system. I'm going to provide that employee with the tools and the resources. Maybe it's not forks and spoons and food, but it'll be whatever resources they need to get that job done. And then I'll check on them occasionally to make sure they understand what they're doing. So maybe that could be like I'm refilling the glass or whatever. When ready, as a leader, I'm going to let that employee take the project or that job and run with it. So I'm walking them out. I'm telling them, this is your project. This is your job. Run with it. But you can come back to me when you need help, and I will check on you as needed. But I'm not going to follow you around the whole time. So escorting them out is letting them do that job, or better yet, maybe it's that you're grooming them for a better job promotion, a better experience. So you're actually walking them out of your office to get something better. So I keep that hosting in mind when I'm working with new and existing employees, and it just brings a private smile to see how the two work together so well.
Beautiful illustration, and I can see it being very much your style, and thank you. Is there anything I have failed to ask you that I should have on this topic or any others? And is there anything that I've missed that you'd like to mention?
Well, I think you did a great job in asking all the questions. The only thing else that I will mention is that wellness is a personal lifestyle journey. Your wellness programs are great. I'm thrilled that companies are offering them, but it's the individual who is going to reap the most benefit. So you as the individual need to make sure that you're setting realistic goals. For example, in nutrition counseling, I would love for everyone to have the goal of eating more fruits and vegetables and less processed foods. But that's my goal. The individual may have totally different goals. So whatever your goal is, embrace it and go with it. But now that said, don't beat yourself up for not being perfect with your goals. It's not only a one at a day time situation, but often it can be an hour at an hour time situation. Just keep in mind the long range goals are worth the challenges and the changes.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much for being a guest. I'll post a link to Mim's LinkedIn so that anyone wishing to connect or get in touch can do so. And I suspect that if they really needed help in creating a wellness initiative or department or in their organization, they could probably reach out to you about inquiring about consulting opportunities. Thank you so much for your time and for all of this valuable information. I hope that you'll be a guest on Brain Chatter Podcast again at some point.
Oh, Derek, thanks for highlighting wellness. Such an important topic.
Brain Chatter is a production of Ken Chapman and Associates Incorporated. We assist clients across North America and beyond with leadership development, corporate culture transformation initiatives, behavior-based professional development for health and safety issues, individual and team assessments, conflict and performance management, succession planning, and team building, making a difference in organizations and individuals' lives for over 40 years. Learn more at leaderscode.com. Thank you for your time.